Hi guys. Hands up who was in my session yesterday. 1, 2, none of you. Great. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to walk around a little bit. John Carrier did this yesterday, and I did this last year, and it's easier for me to be with you than to be up there. So we're going to talk a little bit. Dima was talking about the Microsoft Azure space, and I have to say, on behalf of the OPC Foundation, that we're grateful for Microsoft Azure's donation. They have donated over the years about 6 million lines of code to backstop the cloud initiative. I spoke about that yesterday. That cloud initiative is being chaired by Eric Barnstead of Microsoft. So we have a great relationship there, but why did they donate so much infrastructure to the OPC Foundation? It was a very unselfish maneuver. They wanted to make sure that all of the other cloud providers could be at the same equal footing as Microsoft, because at the OPC Foundation, we have an agreement with all of the cloud providers that if somebody's going to take their information, so an end user takes their information and they park it in the Azure cloud or in the AWS cloud, pick your poison, it stays in the same format that it was put there. In other words, in an OPC UA information model. Nobody's allowed to compress it or throw it through a protobuf or whatever. It stays there nicely, unfettered, so that the person that put it there can go and access that information without losing the fidelity of that data. So we're grateful for the participation of all of our member companies. And since Dima was up here doing a presentation, I thought I'd just do a little nod of the cap for some of the work that they're doing on our behalf. They're on the board of directors, but so are the partners. If you looked at Dima's slide where he was showing the partners that are part of the OPC Foundation, most of them are members of the OPC Foundation, and 3 of them are on our board. So it's really nice to be able to see that kind of collaboration. Dima mentioned OPC UA twice in his presentation, a third time when he was talking about the foundation purely, but twice he mentioned OPC UA. That's the dirty little secret that's going on behind the scenes that's bringing information from devices, motors, whatever, any type of machine to another machine, electronic information. I call it the dirty little secret because he only mentioned it twice. I say it morning, noon, and night. You guys don't know how much you're relying on OPC UA these days. Yesterday when I showed you those success stories, for those of you that did come to that presentation, they're relying entirely on OPC UA to provide them with the information they need. Machine to machine, data model to data model. It's a brilliant, dirty little secret that's running behind the scenes. Allow me to give you 7 thoughts. I'm going to start with thought number 1. Is OPC UA actually open? Well, it's not called open platform communications for nothing. Open being the key word here. OPC Foundation is the home of Industrial Interoperability, and that is the whole premise behind the idea. It is an IEC standard. I spoke to someone yesterday, and they were saying, well, we're going to have a really hard time getting a partner to buy into this. And I said, you're going to have a problem having a partner buy into an IEC standard? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, okay, that's different. That's going to help me. It's like, okay, just do a little reading, man. It's not a lot of struggle to figure out that IEC is the gatekeeper of industrial standards. 62541 is the standard number. It's recognized internationally. The companion specs I spoke about yesterday, if you missed that, we'll talk briefly about it today. And it is in contrast with some other open standards. Some people call their de facto methodologies a standard. Well, if it's not an IEC standard, then it's not a standard, is it? If it's not a standard, if it's just their way of doing it and they've called it a standard, well, that's kind of misrepresenting the idea. Some have said that there's a pay-to-play relationship with the OPC system. In other words, that it's not open. If you were to take your phones out right now and go to opcfoundation.org, you would be able to download the entire specification, especially if you're having trouble sleeping at night. This is chloroform in print. It's a fantastic way to nod off. I kid. You guys are dead. What happened? Too much booze last night? Yeah. By the way, I've got a hotel recommendation where I'm staying. Don't. It's right across the parking lot from a pub, and they were going till 4:30 this morning. And I walked out the front door and was greeted with a little bit of, expelled product on the sidewalk. It was gross. All right, so it's free. We give it away. And people look at us and they think, well, you're strange. Why are you giving away all of that information? Shouldn't you be charging for it? Shouldn't there be some revenue model? The only revenue model the OPC Foundation has is that we'll charge you to become a member of the foundation, and that gives you the right to participate in all of our working groups. It gives you influence on specifications. It gives you the opportunity to see things that are coming, that are kind of behind the scenes until it's actually properly released. That's the only way we make our money. Everything else you can do on your own. You don't even have to be a member to build an OPC product and sell it. You don't even have to be a member to do that. There's an entire ecosystem, and this just kind of goes to the fact that it's open again. I know this is an eye chart, and I apologize, but if you look at this, you'll see all the different consortia that are part of the OPC Foundation, different associations, different groups that are supporting industrial control. Speaking of consortia, there's a list of other initiatives and consortia that the OPC Foundation uses to bring these groups and industry together. You could say that it's the United Nations of industrial automation. Some would say that OPC UA is agnostic. Notice that it's agnostic cubed. I'm going to give you 3 possible explanations of agnostic. First of all, it is platform agnostic. You can run this on any platform you want. It's protocol agnostic. You can run it on TCP, UDP, MQTT, whatever you need. UA binary, there's all kinds of different protocols that you could use. Encryption agnostic. I say it's agnostic, but we do make recommendations. We're not just going to say, oh yeah, use any encryption you want. We do say that, but we also give you some steering direction. We're not going to leave you without recommendations. So if you look on the chart here, you'll see for client server, we've got an A and a B. A is our first recommendation, B is our second recommendation, and then for pub sub, we've got an A recommendation and then anything else you want to use. If you chose A, then you've got all these subsets of that particular cryptography or that encryption. The reason we make these recommendations is because if we just threw the door open and said use whatever cryptography you want, we have to then test for every facet of that. So it's our advice that you follow our direction. There's something for everyone, and we're going to make sure you got your encryption, but there's no real reason for you to be anything other than, following a few guidelines. I'll give you one bonus. It's not just agnostic cubed, it's agnostic to the 4th power. It's industry agnostic. You can look at everything from bottling to packaging to chemicals to refining to transportation. All of these industries are supported by the standard. Does UA scale? Now I got to get up to the front because I have to read a quote here This is a gentleman named Yao Pinheiro, and he was with Equinor, and I spoke about Equinor yesterday. They started production in October of 2019, and that field alone, now the field I'm speaking about is called Johan Sverdrup, and that field is going to provide 30% of Norway's total production. It's quite a feat. Here's the quote. This is from Yao. "We made this bet on OPC UA and it paid off. We proved that UA works on a major project. Today it's operational. We're using OPC UA right here and now. We've removed any doubts within Equinor and across the industry as to whether OPC will work in this application." The application, by the way, is a fairly elaborate offshore system. It's not just one platform, it's a series of gathering platforms and then a production platform. When you succeed with UA in such a flagship project, it quickly becomes the blueprint for the next project, which inspires people. So, what started out with 1 or 2 champions and some advanced learners leading the way, soon became 30 champions and advanced leaders. They went from, in 2019, about 200,000 data points. In 2 years, they were over 1 million data points. This scales very rapidly. Let's talk to Thierry Dano from Renault. He has 38 production facilities worldwide, and he's already schlepped 24 of them over to this new platform that he's inspired to implement. He's done this. The current situation is they're using UA implementation on the information system, information technology level, ISIT. All components are digital ready. They've got bidirectional UA comms, et cetera, et cetera. You can read this. Look at the future. They're giving back. They're going to be giving back to the automotive industry. By the way, if you go to Equinor and you listen to what Equinor is doing, Equinor created about 100+ information models for Johan Sverdrup, that particular platform. They donated all of those information models to the public. You can get access to those for your projects. So that's kind of the ecosystem that I'm talking about. This is a very check your ego at the door kind of ecosystem. I'm very pleased to be a part of it. I came from oil and gas. I had 33 years in that side of the equation. I worked in plants. I did not sell anything. I was the consumer. I was the end user. So I've worked for the majors, Exxon, Saudi Aramco, BP, Chevron, Shell, you name it. I've worked for them over the course of 33 years. Now that I'm with OPC Foundation, this still fits within my mindset of being neutral. I was able to run these facilities with all kinds of different vendors' products. Now I'm representing a company, a foundation, that is the United Nations of Industrial Interoperability. This gets me out of bed in the morning. I'm happy to do this. How secure is UA? It is a defense in-depth strategy. It's been baked into the cake since the very beginning. I spoke about this ad nauseum yesterday. The open standard, one of the benefits of this being an open standard is that it's been reviewed by government agencies and academics. BSI is the German equivalent of the US's NSA. They have reviewed the standard twice, once in 2018, and then after a new revision was released, again in 2022. And their results are published on the OPC Foundation website. You can download their reports. They're long, they're very long, but they're very concise. And in every instance, they give a glowing report on the UA standard and how secure it is. There are 7 facets of security baked into the pie: access control, trusted information, and of course, configurability. And by the way, configurability is not only the hardest part to do, but it's the most important part to do. Because you don't have people on staff that are just going to fall out of bed in the morning and say, I want to set up certificates between systems. I love that. No, you don't. Don't tell me you do, because nobody does. So we've got baked into the cake this premise or this idea of a global discovery service, this product that actually manages the dispensing and linking of certificates between host devices and field devices. Easily done using a very simple tool. That makes it easier for people like me, when I was working in the factories and in the plants, to be able to do something that somewhat IT-centric, but I'm on the OT side. Gives me tools that I didn't have before. Why do I want certified products? Well, duh, that means they're interoperable. If I build an OPC product, remember I said just a few minutes ago, you don't even have to be a member to make an OPC product? It's true, you don't. But if you don't get it certified, then you're just a hack. You've gone and made something, and now you're putting it out there saying that it's OPC UA, but you never did get it tested. When you get something tested, it means that it's sent to our third-party labs. We make no money off testing because we don't even do the testing. We have labs that have been set up around the world where you can send a product in to get it tested. Once it's tested and certified, we'll put it on our marketplace. You'll see it on our website. You'll see whether it's certified or not. We even put the stuff up there that's not certified so that you've got a fighting chance of saying, oh, you know what, we'd like to buy your product, Mr. So-and-so, but it would be really nice if you went and got that certified before we bought it. And people think, oh, well, that means certification costs an arm and a leg. No, it doesn't. If you wanted to go get something certified, you have to pay for the engineer's time. That's $1,800 a day for their lab. And if you're a member of the OPC Foundation, it's half price, so $900 a day. What's the average time to get something certified? Anywhere between 5 to 10 days. You do the math. How hard is that? Not hard. Going on. Why does data require context? I'm going to say it's 36 degrees. What does that mean? Where? What is degrees? Give me some options. What could I be saying? It's 36 degrees. Kelvin. Wow. Why didn't you say Rankine? Jeez. I'm an instrument engineer. I get to play those games. What else could it be? Lat and long. Well, lat. The slope of a road? Fantastic. You know what? I thought of that. It's in my slides. Is it 36 degrees? Let's check the temperature of this child. Wait, 36 degrees Celsius. Is that a fever? Is that normal? What is that? It's close to normal. 37's normal. So this kid's not even hot. By the way, being an instrument engineer, I have to be bilingual. I have to know imperial and metric units. Okay, is it 36 Fahrenheit? Is it 36 degrees north? What about south? Is it 36-degree angle? My friend with the slope here. Fantastic. Good for you. You got them all. But information without context is rubbish. I don't have context if I don't have the actual engineering units. So you guys get the point. All right? Information model. Let's look at very quickly at the 6 different products that are around here. If you have context, you have uniformity. You have the semantic. You're following the standard. I think it's pretty obvious where this is going. OPC UA created information modeling. Secure information modeling. That's all we do. That's not a protocol. That's defining information in context. And we have made a way to secure that information over any transport, through any protocol, with any encryption or cryptography you choose to use. Not bad, not bad. Last one. What's the difference between a payload and a protocol? Well, let's start with a payload. Let's say that a payload is a model. Could be any kind of car, could be any kind of transportation. Could be a school bus, for crying out loud. Could be a scooter. These are all transportations. These are all models of vehicles. What's the transport? Well, we need bridges, we need roads, we need whatever else, right? These are all transports. Again, you get the point. Let's move on to a bit of a comparison then. If the payload then is the information and the protocol is the transport, I've given you a bunch of examples of how that actually works. You could have the consumer over here. So this could be a cloud subscriber, your fourth one down. That could be analytical data, and I could be pushing that pub sub from an edge device and pushing it to the Azure cloud or AWS, or pick your poison, we don't care. They're all members of OPC Foundation. To say that there's a problem with information models and transport protocols is absolutely insane. How could that be otherwise? So here's a summary of what we've talked about. I'll leave that up. We have 22 seconds for questions. Does anybody have a question they want to ask? Wait, I can go longer? Yes, maybe? Oh, okay, we got more than 22 seconds. The peanut gallery has spoken.
Any questions?
They're doing this. Go, go, keep.
Questions? There's got to be a question.
I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards if you don't want to ask in here.
I have a question. Of course.
Of course you do. You're the moderator. You're supposed to.
So, historically, at least in my recollection, OPC UA was a client-server model, and now it fully embraces a pub-sub model. Are there any pitfalls as we make this migration? So, you know, we say we embrace a client-server model, but something in the hierarchy is client-server. I don't want to get too wonky on you, but are there any things that we need to worry about?
No, because what you're implying, and I'm gonna hopefully correct that idea here. We're not leaving client-server. Client-server is the foundation of the protocol or the standard or the information modeling, right? Ask, receive. PubSub was added in the mid-2010s, and PubSub is now an additional feature that you can use to set up a subscription and have a field device or an edge device published to that subscriber, which could be a cloud, could be your historian, could be an MES. You've set up a subscriber that needs information. So now we're using PubSub. People have argued, oh, but OPC is so slow. Yeah, if you're going to do that over client-server, expect to wait. It is going to get congested. That's why PubSub was invented. PubSub is extremely lean. And so we're taking advantage of very lean protocols like MQTT, right? And yesterday I mentioned this to a few people. MQTT is a transport. It's one of the roads or bridges that I showed you there. It's a standard. And that standard defines the packet. What that standard does not define is the payload. OPC UA defines that payload. So now you're using MQTT packets over a broker to get that information quickly, high speed, super lean from an edge device to a cloud, or from something on-prem to a historian or to an MES. You're not going to be using client-server for that. So you have the option. You can use either or.
So it's like when I'm acting as a subscriber, I'm acting as a client, and when I'm acting as a publisher, I'm acting as a server? Is that the way I should think about it?
Not a bad way to think about it. Not a bad way to think about it. People would say that the client would need to make the call. So I'm gonna argue that point. A subscriber does not make the call. The session is set up at the time of configuration, and it runs in perpetuity. The subscriber never has to call out. Do you get the paper in the morning?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if the newspaper boy throws the paper on the front porch, great. If it's not there in the morning, tech support.
That's
But
great.
the fact remains is you subscribe to the paper, and it damn well better be there in the morning. So there are mechanisms in place for timeouts, for lost information. If a subscriber doesn't get the information that they're expecting, then of course there's going to be issues. There are vehicles built into the protocol that allow the subscriber then to raise a flag and say, I'm not getting my morning newspaper. What's going on? Other questions? We're good? I'm really glad that you're here. I'm glad to be here. I was very pleased to be able to speak yesterday and again today, so thank you for your time. If you've got questions you don't want to ask in public, I'm happy to meet with you in a quiet corner somewhere over a nice little tea.